In Regah Bivrit this week, we are in Parashat Emor, and me and Emor, as he spoke, and he's speaking to the Kohanim in this Torah portion about the different rulings that have to do specifically as related to the high priest. I would like to look at one very unique verse today in Leviticus chapter 23. Leviticus 23 is an important chapter. It's sometimes called the feast chapters. And I want to challenge today the notion that the holidays are actually called the feast. Sometimes people say, well, we keep the feast or we don't keep the feast. But I want you to look at how God determined and called to his days. It says, Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe le'emor, 23:1. God spoke to Moshe and he says to him, Daber, speak. The word daber, to speak. El bnei Israel, to the children of Israel, to the sons of Israel. Here is the word I want you to focus on. Moadei Adonai asher tikreu. Otam mikra kodesh. The days of the Lord that you will call, they will be called mikra kodesh. The Hebrew word that is used to determine the days, the appointed days of the Lord, is the word Moed. Moed does not mean in Hebrew feast, nor it means festival. Moed comes from the word edut, ed. Ed means to testify or to give testimony. And testimony of what? Of what he says here in the text, Mikra Kodesh. What is a Mikra Kodesh? A day. By the way, the word Mikra, it's come from the word of Vaikra, and to be called. It's called Kodesh. It's a day that comes to testify on my holiness and your holiness. Okay, it's very, very important. First of all, it's called appointed times, or in Hebrew, Moed. Okay, those are dates that God ordained and God said. Okay. And it said they call Mikra Kodesh. The opposite of Mikra Kodesh is Mikra Chol. Chol is everything ordinary in Hebrew. Kodesh is everything that is set apart. And then he said, Ele hem muadai. So who this feast belongs to? This feast belongs to the Lord. But I want you to notice something. It says here in the Torah, at the end, he says that this is the feast that he has given unto Israel. So yes, those are the feast of the Lord, but it's the feast he's given Israel. Why this is important? Because Israel are entrusted with those festivals. Paul says in Romans 3 that Israel entrusted the oracle of God. Israel is entrusted the feast, but there are God feasts to show a relationship. And what is this relationship called? It is called Moadei Adonai. Okay, Moed or Edut. It's interesting because Israel was changed, and Israel was known by the term Edat Israel, the congregation of Israel. What is the difference between ecclesia in Greek or kahal to Edah? Well, Edah is a group that will share future together. Okay? And here he's saying, through the festival, I unite you and make you like a perfect bride for me. I am the group. That's exactly what Moed is. It's a appointed time where the entire bride is looking forward to the groom. And he says all the Moedim, started with the first one, Shabbat, is for that purpose that you will beautify yourself. That's what Kadosh means, Kodesh. Beautify, set yourself apart, prepare yourself. So we have to approach God days not just as a day we observe or we celebrate, right? Because in the book of the book of Isaiah, the cross reference, let's go to Isaiah for a second. Isaiah chapter 1, he says, and here he used the term, he says, Chodesh, verse 13, Chodesh u'Shabbat, which, remember, we just read that Chodesh u'Shabbat called Mikra Kodesh, Koreh Mikra. It's like a Mikra Kodesh. It's a holy day, but he say, I hated those days. Your new moons and your Shabbat, I hated. Why did he hate it? They kept the holiday, they kept the feast, they kept the, because their heart was not to be sanctified. Okay? Our heart, right now we're in Shavuot, we're getting toward Shavuot, our hearts should be to be sanctified and to be set apart and to be ready to work into Kedusha with Hashem, okay? So it's not enough just to do things, Hashem says. He says, I give you those things so you will become Kedoshim, so you will be set apart, you will be beautified, and that's something we have to do together as a community, all of Israel together. God bless you, and let us approach those days before Shavuot as they truly are Mikraei Kodesh, are days that God is going to take us and make us one Edah, with one Kedusha, one set of standard and holiness for the mighty one of Israel. Yitraot.